You are looking live at the scene of a deadly shooting tonight in Toronto's Northwest End. It happened around 7:45 at a plaza located here at Black Creek Drive and Trethewey Drive. That's across the street from Toronto Police 12 Division. And police say they found one person, a young male, with life-threatening injuries. He was rushed to hospital where he later died. Police say at least one suspect fled in a black sedan, and investigators are canvassing the area for surveillance footage. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. We want to welcome our viewers from across the province on this Labor Day holiday. And tonight's shooting caps off what has been a violent weekend in the GTA. 2 other people in Toronto were shot and killed. And in Mississauga, 4 people were injured in a violent incident early this morning. Nama Weingarten has all the details.
Toronto and the GTA saw a series of violent incidents this Labor Day weekend, with the latest happening today when 3 men were shot and a woman was stabbed in Mississauga shortly after 12:30 a.m. Police were called to the industrial area of Tonkin Road and Mafson Boulevard. They say the victims all attended hospital with serious but not life-threatening injuries and are yet to release any other information about potential suspects.
So we believe that this is an isolated incident to the area, in this industrial area, and that there's no other threat at this time.
This just a day after a man died from another shooting in Toronto in the area of Eglinton Avenue West and Times Road. He was identified as 37-year-old Tristan McNally of Brampton. Police were called around 6 a.m. Sunday morning when they found Tristan with gunshot wounds in a back alleyway. He was taken to hospital where he later died. Police haven't released any suspect information, but they say the shooting took place in the area of an after-hours club that was open. Meanwhile, police are also appealing for witnesses for a targeted shooting that happened in Scarborough Friday night. They identified the victim as 64-year-old Ionis Kyriakopoulos and say he was shot dead in front of a home in the area of Danforth and Warden Avenues.
At this time, we're at the very preliminary stages of our investigation. However, I can tell you that there are at least 3 suspects who fled the area in a dark-colored SUV.
Investigators say the victim was previously known to police, and an RCMP release from this spring shows he was accused of taking part of an illegal gaming and bookmaking network that operated within the GTA. These latest shootings mark homicides 56th and 57th in Toronto this year so far. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
And a shooting in North York from last week has turned into a homicide investigation after the victim died in hospital today. He was 21 years old, and it happened a little after midnight last Tuesday outside a row of restaurants at Shepherd and Abraham Welsh Road near Weston. 2 vehicles, a van and an SUV, are being examined by police, but no details on suspects have been released yet. Reactions continue to come in following the news that 6 Israeli hostages in Gaza were found dead over the weekend. In Israel, thousands of people have taken to the streets, calling for a ceasefire and the release of the remaining hostages held by Hamas. Meanwhile, here at home, some in the local Jewish community are also coming together to mourn and to call for immediate action. Tyler Cheese has that story.
Bring them home alive! Bring them home alive!
On the steps outside the Israeli consulate in Toronto, a group calls for the release of around 100 hostages that have been held by Hamas since October 7th last year. The Jewish community is still reeling from the recent killing of 6 hostages in Gaza.
These people were alive hours before a deal maybe could have been announced, and it was not.
This group is calling on the Israeli government to do everything in its power to reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas in order to bring the remaining hostages home.
We must make sure that we do absolutely everything to bring each and every one of them back safe.
There are 100 living souls being held in captivity, and they need to be brought home. There is mothers who are waiting to see their children.
This man's sister-in-law and her 3 children were held captive by Hamas for 51 days. They've all since been released, but he says the Israeli government hasn't done enough to bring the remaining hostages home.
They went into a war that is completely useless in order to save face after not bringing any security to the people of Israel. And they are willing to sacrifice the hostages.
A vigil for the 6 killed hostages was also held in Toronto last night. And for those with family members still in captivity, this tragedy is a stark reminder that their loved ones aren't home safe.
My cousin Romy, she turned 24 a few weeks ago in captivity. She was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival on October 7th. The uncertainty, the fear of what she has experienced and is continuing to experience, combined with this overwhelming desire and desperation to have her home, is an incredibly heavy emotion to carry.
She's calling on decision makers here in Canada to do more.
I'd like to see our Canadian leaders truly lead and lead by example, showing what humanity looks like and what humanity feels like. You know, leadership isn't just about words, it's about action.
In a social media post Sunday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called for Hamas to release all hostages and for leaders to reach a deal to end the violence in Gaza. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
In eastern Ontario, one family is grieving tonight after their 14-year-old daughter was struck and killed while riding her bike. Charlotte Light was hit by a car on Friday while cycling on the shoulder of a busy road just outside Cornwall. According to provincial police, the driver was not injured and stayed at the scene following the collision. Joe Tunney spoke to her family.
It was along here where emergency responders arrived shortly before 3:30 p.m. on Friday. Already, off-duty firefighters and others were attempting life-saving measures. The Ontario Provincial Police say every effort was made to save the 14-year-old's life, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. Now a family is left asking why. Greg and Ashley Light say they often told their daughter Charlotte to take the side roads as often as possible. They don't know why she was on that stretch of road on her way to see friends at the nearby Tim Hortons, but suspect she was trying to save a bit of time. Ashley says she was called by a friend whose husband was at the scene of the crash and worried it was Charlotte. The mom rushed over in her car. Soon, she saw Charlotte's bike at the roadside.
I laid there with her. My husband, at the time he was at work at the Cornwall Golf and Country Club, and I was trying to call him in panic and couldn't get through. And finally, when he did touch base with me, I told him the horrific news, and he got to the scene as quickly as he could. So essentially, we were there with her, and we just waited there until the coroner and the funeral home could come and take her away.
Now the family says they're left remembering their eldest of 6 children. They say Charlotte was excitedly preparing for her first year of high school with her locker all picked out. They say she had a busy calendar, including soccer, several local theater productions, and a long list of friends.
I mean, she was just an incredibly well-rounded kid, you know.
She liked to help others. She was always willing to help other people.
Not even a hesitation. She, you know, in the back of her mind, there was she has to complete her volunteer hours for high school, and she was always coming up with ideas of how she could volunteer, what she could do, and if I ever had a suggestion, sometimes I didn't even get to finish my suggestion, and she was already saying yes, like, yeah, I want to do that.
Greg and Ashley say the outpouring of love their family has received since Friday has been overwhelming, with their family's faith also acting as an important anchor.
And I don't pretend to have the answers, but I think that the outpouring of compassion and love in a time of tragedy is maybe a glimpse into why suffering exists. And I don't think we should try and eliminate suffering. I think we should embrace the beauty that comes out of suffering. And
the Ontario Provincial Police are asking anyone who may have witnessed the collision or have information to contact investigators. Joseph Tunney, CBC News, Long Sault.
And all across the province today, thousands of workers took part in Labor Day marches, some of them currently dealing with labor negotiations for new contracts, while others showed up simply to show support for the labor movement. Greg Ross has that story.
Today they will hear us when we say that without worker, there is no future.
Thousands of workers gathered downtown early this morning in support of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council, and they had a strong Labor Day message.
We keep trying to strive for better wages, better working conditions, more inclusion and diversity, and ensuring as much work as possible.
Many of these workers marched in the annual Labor Day parade. They were joined by Mayor Olivia Chow.
I'm here to celebrate Labor Day and the 43,000 workers that work in the city, providing good public services to Torontonians every hour every day throughout the year.
Unionized workers for the city will be hoping for that same kind of support in the coming months as the city negotiates new collective agreements.
We're getting into the bargaining, but we will be fair. We will work together.
It was all about togetherness today for members of the ACTRA union, which has been locked out for more than 2 years.
ACTRA Toronto performers, ACTRA national performers have been locked out for 860 days today. Standing alongside all of our sibling unions, it feels great, it's empowering, and it's a great reminder that when we show up for others, others will show up for us.
Postal workers were also taking advantage of the support. They have been through a lengthy bargaining process of their own.
We're trying our best to bargain for good wages, health and safety, expansion of services, including postal banking and senior check-ins. We're fighting for your post office, our work.
Laborers from different unions and different professions standing shoulder to shoulder, all for the same cause.
Honoring the labor movement and all the people who came before us and after us.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's take you now to Windsor, where that city has a reputation as a strong labor force. A former national union leader says Windsor Labor Day celebrations are a special experience.
It's a reminder to all of us that workers' rights and workers' battles continue. You know, every once in a while we might take our gains for granted and all of the things that we bargain for granted, but every single day is a struggle. Most of our gains, most of our successes have been to help families buy homes, buy cars, put their kids through school. All of those things are important, and they're all attributed to the labor movement. So I do get emotional, quite frankly, recognizing that the labor movement built the middle class. A worker's a worker, and at the end of the day, we got to fight for one another, because you pick off one, you pick off the other.
Today's events featured a parade, speeches, and festivities, and representatives of every union and labor association in the Windsor-Essex region were in attendance, including teachers, firefighters, public service employees, and auto workers. And people have been busy across the province this long weekend, celebrating the unofficial end of the summer before getting back to the good old routine tomorrow. And Dale Manuktuk shows us how people spent the day.
Hi, welcome. Arlene Fidelino and her daughter Shaniel are originally from the GTA, but Arlene now lives in the Caribbean and Shaniel in the United States. The CNE brought them back home to sell Arlene's handmade gifts.
She honestly amazes me every day. She's been here for the last 18 days, 12 hours, killing it. And she's just really creative, and it's nice to be able to support something for her rather than her just supporting me all the time.
Family bonding at the CNE. That's just classic.
School is coming.
Had to ruin it, eh?
I'm not looking forward to it.
Then let's look backwards.
What's been your favorite part of summer?
Probably going to Cape Breton Island.
What was so good about that?
I got to see my family.
Now's the year.
From the games to the rides, Labor Day weekend at the CNE is a perfect place to spend the end of summer.
It can be up to 25% of our total attendance. People just want to mark this as the end of the, they've come back from the cottage or they've just ended their vacation, and this is just something to do.
There was lots of other things to do around the city as well, including TU Jazz Fest at Mel Lastman Square. It's the country's biggest jazz festival for emerging artists. There was also Busker Fest at Woodbine Park, but just like at the CNE, the reminder that summer is over was hard to escape.
Are you guys ready to go back to school yet? Are you looking forward to going back to school this week?
Yeah. I'm going to go into grade 3 with my best friends and everything.
What are you most nervous about the upcoming school year?
Just the whole routine, the whole song and dance, getting them out the door in the morning and dealing with the homework and all that stuff.
You go, very nice.
Busker Fest is run by charity Toronto Epilepsy. They're hoping to raise over $100,000.
Admission is by donation, and all the buskers will pass their hat after their show. So you get to choose how much you can afford and how much it was worth, and we hope you come, and you give generously, but mostly we hope you come.
This year, attendance at the CNE will top 1.4 million. That's about 200,000 shy of last year's record gate after it was dealt a wrath of weather warnings to start the Canadian National Exhibition, but that equates to about an average year of attendance. Dale Manuktuk, CBC News, Toronto.
I've spent the last 7 years building a new life for myself, and I want to live it now. I want to live my new life that I've been building, and I will miss you terribly.
An emotional Adele telling her fans she's going to take it easy for a while. The Grammy-winning singer made the announcement during a recent show in Munich, and she said she'll be taking a hiatus from performing and has no plans to release new music when her current Las Vegas residency ends. Her Vegas show, Weekends with Adele, has been running since 2022 with only 10 more shows left, and her final show will be on November 23rd. Canadian movie theaters have been struggling since the pandemic, but they're getting a boost from foreign films, and Eli Glasner takes a look at why there's such a big draw for movie goers.
Oh, she's perfect!
It's been a good summer for movie theaters, with big audiences for Deadpool and other familiar franchises. But take a look around. Next to the superheroes and sequels, you'll find films from India, China, Korea, and more. Evidence of a growing trend. In its annual statement for 2023, Cineplex touted the fact that 10% of its box office revenue was from international programming.
From Hindi film to Punjabi film to Korean film, Filipino film.
Robert Cousins is the guy who decides which film runs where and says it's about serving the community. Now that's heartwarming, but why does this make business sense for you?
Because people come. I mean, ultimately, what makes this line of product work as much or more than any other line we have is that the audiences come out for it.
He says last year featured 217 non-English titles.
It is equal to all of the studio and independent distributors combined.
What's lovely is that, you will get to see these smaller films over here.
This critic used to have to trek to the suburbs for her Bollywood fix.
I still love those theaters, don't get me wrong. Their sticky floors have changed, but they're still nice.
Now she can catch Korean, Hindi hits, and more, all at her local multiplex. A change, she says, is driven by the increasing popularity of non-English titles on streaming.
Increasingly, I think people are actually interested in different types of cinemas, So yeah, I think it makes strong business sense.
Maru naam, Veda.
But perhaps the best reasons can be found in the line for the Hindi language film Veda.
It's a plus for us that we can actually watch in Canada. So I'm really excited for this movie.
Like we are missing families and all stuff, so these are the things that connect us back.
Stitched together by the international language of cinema. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
And Chris Potter is here now. Chris, I can't imagine a better last day of summer for a lot of folks. What is it going to be like for folks tomorrow morning as they're getting their kids ready for school?
Well, no rain is in the forecast, Chris, and that's going to be universal across the entire region all the way through into Friday. That's when the weather pattern begins to change and evolve. The one thing that will change will be the temperatures, because obviously it was a cooler than average day today. Normal daytime high for this time of year is around 24, and today we peaked at around 20, and that seems to be the average across southern Ontario. 20 in Windsor, 19 in Ottawa, and once again 20 throughout much of the GTA. But in terms of active weather, there's not much to point out. We have a very large, slow-moving area of high pressure, and it's going to dominate our forecast region. Nothing to talk about across our entire province, and it will continue to migrate very gradually towards the east. There will be systems in our province once we get into Wednesday and Thursday, but that's over far northern Ontario, so we'll still hold on to high pressure, and that means clear skies at night and lots of sunshine throughout the day. Maybe a few clouds tomorrow late afternoon, but otherwise nothing but blue sky. Once we get into Wednesday, more of the same. Once we get through Wednesday night and into Thursday, more of the same. So you get what I'm trying to say. Not much will change except for the temperatures. There will be a gradual warm up, but we just have to get through a couple of cool nights ahead, such as tonight. A little bit cooler than last night. So if you woke up early this morning, you went outside, maybe to grab the paper and go, ooh, it's a little fresh. Same thing tomorrow. In fact, it might be a little bit cooler. This is at around 6 to 6:30. So you're not going to experience these kind of temperatures as the kids head off to school. It will warm up a few degrees, but it might merit an extra layer, maybe a sweater before sending the little ones off. In terms of the daytime highs tomorrow, a little bit better, up towards 21 to 23 fairly universally, and it's not going to feel that much higher when you factor in the humidity because it's going to be fairly low. So in terms of Toronto, off to school around 12 degrees, feeling like that, lots of sunshine. Heading home, more of the same, more sunshine, a light southerly wind, and highs around 23, and that's what it will be like as you're heading back from school. So you might be able to get outside and enjoy after school with some outside play. Wednesday, very similar story, as I mentioned, with high pressure firmly in place, 24. Overnight lows are going to start to rebound as well, 15 Wednesday night. Back up to 26 for Thursday, sunshine. Temperatures will likely feel closer to the upper 20s, but obviously that's quite manageable. But for those craving a little heat, it does kind of work its way back in. For Friday, we have increasing clouds. It looks dry through the daytime hours with a high of 26. It's Friday late evening, overnight, and into Saturday that it looks like a very wet day is on tap, Chris. That's when the weather pattern changes. At this point, some of the forecast models pumping out about 40 to 50 millimeters of rainfall. So the run of sun and then a very wet Saturday, rather.
Yeah, but a few gorgeous days there first. Thank you, Chris.
You got it.